Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show that's about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode, The Walking Dead World Beyond. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, we are picking up right where last week's episode left off with the whole, wait, did Silas just straight up kill Tony and Percy? Obviously, they never were able to find out because, like, the blood trail from Percy led to the water, but it's like currents that strong, he would have gotten washed away. And obviously, we see we hear a little bit of the muffled, like, back and forth between, like, what went down. Because for them, it's like, it doesn't make any sense why Silas would turn against them, people who were on their side. Now, I think this is actually kind of interesting. Like, Huck walks out and she goes, "I'm sorry, kid," because, like, she's going to go through his bad and everything. Because she immediately was kind of like, oh, she had a reason to believe that Silas did it. So what she ended up doing, though, is pulling out, like, all these, like, pictures and poems that, you know, obviously Iris had drawn and written and thrown away. But now it looks like, okay, this is your means. It's like your motive, because it's like he was jealous of Percy, and, like, you know, because obviously they found him, he was covered in blood, he was drunk, so he doesn't remember what happened. But so obviously they can't say which way or another whether or not he did it. Iris didn't want to believe it. Hope and Huck are the ones that were the most kind of like, he did it. Everyone else was reserved. Like, Elton in particular was reserved. Like, same thing for Felix, because Felix is like, I don't know what to do, because he's like, this kid wanted a second chance, you know, and it's just, but like, Hope, like, you know, it's actually, he was suggesting that Huck be the one to take him back, but Huck's like, considering the kid's side, like, he could take me down too if the situation came down to it, because it's like, the girls aren't going to want to go back, especially now that they have an idea of where their dad is. Like, there's no going back for them, so, you know, what choice do they have? It's either, you know, they have to decide what to do, because it's like, if they either take him along, which if they take him along, he could be a danger to everyone else, or they leave him behind, you know? And obviously that didn't sit right with Elton, and obviously, like, you know, he was like, stay away from me, I'm dangerous. But then, like, Elton was like, I don't believe that. He's like, anytime you've ever acted in violence, it was out of self-defense. It's like, yeah, but I hurt you. It's like, yeah, but you're trying to protect Iris. So he's like, no matter what the circumstances must be, like, I'm sure whatever you did because you were trying to protect someone. That's the only reason why you ever get violent. And so he was like, if you're not going to defend yourself, if you're not going to, like, try and believe that you're innocent, he's like, then I'll believe for you. So he's like, I'm going to find some evidence to prove that you, like, despite everything else, like I said, everyone else is kind of on the fence about it in particular, but he was the one that was so, I'm going to prove your innocence. And I thought it was kind of interesting, because obviously we cut back and forth between this moment and kind of understanding Silas's past, like I was hoping we would. Basically, his dad was abusive and he was defending himself. Interesting enough, the actor who plays his dad, the thing I kind of best know him from, I'm blanking on his character's name, but he was in the show Falling Water. It's kind of the thing I best know him from. But and that's that complicated thing with that abusive situation, because it is abuse mixed with love, and I think that makes it worse. Not saying, like, if it was just pure abuse, it's not like that makes it better, but it's like, it hurts even deeper with love, because it's like, oh, I hurt you and abuse you, but then no, the next moment, no, I love you, like, I didn't mean it, like, because it seems like, in the way they were kind of, at least the way Silas tells about it, it seems like his dad was a mean drunk, so, like, his dad would, like, get drunk, like, go into, like, a drunken, like, blackout and get into a rage and then forget what he did. Like, it seemed like that happened, because even we saw when Silas defended himself, like, he got up and he was like, Dad, what happened to you? And then it slowly clicked back to him. So it's something in his, you know, I mean, to be fair, his dad had, like, slammed him against the wall and was choking him, so his body probably reacted. And cause we don't know if that was, like, the first instance. I mean, it's the only instance that's come up, but that's, like, that was a self-defense type of situation. And obviously, it's a well-known situation, at least to neighbors, because that neighbor came by and was like, we heard what was going down, because, like, the thin walls and everything. So it's like, because she thought, like, oh, your mom's here or something. So it might have been something fairly, like, it had fairly recently happened, something between them. Why, or maybe he was thinking, maybe it's like the dude was blowing up at his wife maybe left, and then it kind of all got shifted to Silas, or maybe it was all at Silas, but she was saying, like, get you and your mom out of it. It's like, my mom's not here, and it's like, did he hurt you? It's like, Silas, you can come with me. He's like, I think you should leave, because it was a situation where it's like, that's the sad situation about an abuse situation. It's like you're scared to like reach out for help because like I think this is coming from the situation of I can never know. I've never been in that situation of like this is your dad, so it's like despite everything you still care about him. And it's just like your mom staying in a situation. It's almost like this. It's almost a very Stockholm syndrome type of situation where it's like you kind of feel like this is all you have, and it's like you don't want to destroy what you have because you feel like without it you might not have anything. So because it's probably that thing of I won't do it again, I'm sorry. Because especially as we saw with some of Silas's memories when he was younger, like his dad's the reason why he's in like why he puts on the headphones. It's like it's supposed to mimic like playing the music loud, so it's like you're at a concert or whatever. And he had that touching moment with his dad that it's like his knee was scraped up, his dad put a band-aid on it, showed the whole thing with the orange. So it's like that was, like I said, it was a complicated thing of there was abuse and there was love. Maybe his dad wasn't always like that. Maybe he was, maybe, I don't know, maybe certain things went wrong in his life and he started drinking and got super abusive, he lost control. So either way, it's kind of bouncing back and forth because obviously looking back on everything, like you can tell like Silas was kind of cemented in his own guilt because Felix came to try and talk to him. He's like, do you need anything? If you need anything, just let me know. And it's like, only thing he cared about is like, is Iris okay? And it's like, no, one of her friends is dead. Like, just give me something that tells me that you weren't the one responsible. He was like, I wanted a second chance. He was like, you're bringing up your dad's situation. He was like, that was self-defense. But obviously, like, I think in his own, torturing his self about, his own guilt about it, he probably makes himself feel like, no, it wasn't out of self-defense. I took it too far because, he might have been attacking me because his dad was just straight up slammed him against the wall and was choking him. So it's like, it's a situation where it's like it was purely a self-defense situation that sadly, it got, out of control. And so obviously cutting back to like his dad is gone. And the moment that happened, I was like, oh, did his dad turn? But then he went to the bathroom and there was like some stuff like his dad was trying to patch himself up. Maybe. But there was also, because there was like stuff torn around, so he was trying to patch himself up. And by the time he goes upstairs, his dad had already turned. And so he was trying to like ignore the problem. So he just went in his room, locked the door, and played loud music, thinking back to that moment, with his dad laying on the floor, listening to the music, about the concert and everything. So... And what makes it even sadder is the fact is that, like, obviously he heard his mom crying out and he came and killed his dad. And his mom was like, stay away from me. Now, once again, because of the circumstances, we don't know why. Because we do know his mom's the one that said he did it. Because it's like when it was all said and done, when he was getting arrested and whatnot, it's like his mom said he did it. Like, because that was even something kind of getting thrown at him in present day. It's like we all heard the things about what he did with his dad. Like, but that's once again, it's kind of sad that like Hope threw that in his face because it never really came up before now. Like, it's like you never like the rumors and stuff like that. That's all they were to you until like this situation. Now I guess in her mind it adds validity to what he did. But regardless, the fact of the matter is, his mom either it was that, like I said, that Stockholm syndrome type of thing of like, like despite what he did, that was your father, that was my husband, you killed him. Or maybe she's talking that because he got so violent. Yeah, it might have been to protect me, but it's like he would have been in that situation if you had killed him first. Two, the fact is that you did that means that you could do it to me. So it's hard to say. The fact is that she even turned against him. It's hard to say, what's going through a person's mind in that situation, especially having been what she's been through. Because obviously, like I said, we saw, like, obviously, like, it wasn't just Silas getting abused, she was too, because there was a point where we see, like, her having a bruised eye and everything. Like, it seemed like she might have been trying to, like, take care of it, or maybe even trying to cover it up with makeup or something. But it's a rough situation, like, and everyone, like I said, comes to visit him at, like, one point in time. Because obviously Elton tried to find some evidence, but he couldn't. It's interesting because like Hope has that whole dynamic with Huck, where it's like Huck is trying to say like there are two sides to everyone, because it's like she's like, I didn't really like Tony. Tony did try to steal our stuff, and he was kind of a bit of a con man, but he seemed alright. It's like, yeah, people aren't that simple. So it's like, oh, I'm supposed to forgive Silas. She's like, no, I'm just saying that basically that people aren't so black and white. There is kind of, she didn't say it as much, but it was almost like implying like, yeah, people have gray areas to them. And so it's a situation of like whether or not Silas did it or not is a situation where you have to decide what it's okay to feel the way you do, have all these emotions where you're like angry and sad. But at the end of the day, you have a mission that you want to go see your dad. You want to save your dad. You have to make the choice on what you want to do, because anything else is going to be a distraction. So he could be taking away from you, seeing your dad. So that's kind of like so you got to let that be your top priority, let nothing else stand in your way. And she kind of keeps that mentality because she brings it up because obviously regardless of it, it's like, she's like, wait, you're going to forgive? Because I think, there was a little hope in her, no pun intended with her name being Hope, but because the moment she hears Elton being like, no, like if he did, she's like, oh, if he did it, so you're going to forgive him? But it's like, he's trying to say that there's different circumstances here, but for her, it's like, I got to focus on my dad, he's family. But for Elton, it's like Silas is family. He's like, I haven't had a family in a long time. So for him, it's like, you guys are like family to me. So he doesn't want to leave his family behind. And so that kind of hit Hope, because it's like, well, I'm responsible for taking away your family. Because I think for her, it's almost that complicated thing of like, who am I to cast stones on you for killing someone? And I did what I did. It's like, yeah, I was a kid. Your circumstances might have been different because like maybe, you liked Iris and stuff like that. Because Iris is like, if he did it to protect me, that makes her even worse, makes her feel even worse because it meant like because she felt kind of like she was living a lie if he needed to protect her. Maybe like, oh, I wasn't seeing him for who he really was. Or maybe, I don't know. So like, you could tell how conflicted Hope is, because it makes her probably come off a little hypocritical. But at the same time, like I said, the circumstances are similar yet different, but it's still got to make her feel a certain way, And so at one point you could tell Silas was trying to wiggle his way free, but at any point in time he could have called for help, but he still didn't. He kept struggling when that walker was getting closer, but to a point he just stopped. And I think it's because the reason why he didn't call out for help, because I think he'd already thought to himself, like, no, like they're not, even if I call out for help, they're not going to help me. I'm a monster. And I think he just thought like, I might as well just accept it. I'm a monster. And he was going to wait for it to happen. But then he looks down and Hope had killed her. She's like, what were you going to do? She's like, I'm sorry. I do believe you did it, but still, like, why didn't you call out for help or anything? Because he was like, oh, why did you save me? It's like, regardless of anything, she wasn't going to let him die, because she says, like, I think you did it, but there's still a part of her that doesn't want to believe he did it, So she's not as, like, she's a lot more conflicted than she would think she would let on. So when it's all said and done, though, there's that conversation between Elton and Iris, where it's kind of like, we have to be the deciding vote, because you're kind of like, basically Silas is one of us, and, like, we are kind of like a family. So it's like, it's not just Huck and Felix that get to decide. You're kind of like so you should have a vote, I should have a vote, so should Hope. And it's like, honestly, he was like, if we could get like, a vote of like 3 against, one, because he was even saying like Felix doesn't want to leave Silas behind either. So we are more likely to, convince him. Because obviously the whole conversation, like Iris was saying, like basically, Hope used to say when they were young that basically when you're looking at the stars, she's like, because of the way like stars are like light years away, that basically stars that already died, that basically when you're seeing them, they're just kind of empty shells, kind of very similar to their circumstances. But Elton kind of corrects it by being like, the stars are only like 100 light years away or something like that, where he was basically saying like, if they were in the process of dying, we would know. So all those stars we see right now are alive and well. He's like, I mean, I don't know if that makes you feel anything. It's just like, it does, because it is, the other perspective was very bleak in the sense that like, oh, they're already dead, we just don't know it yet. We're just kind of looking at what is essentially empty shells, because basically seeing stars is like time travel, because they are light years away. The amount of time it takes for a star to like, for us to see a star, like it would probably take you, years time to get, just how traveling, light years and stuff like that, like length of time it would take and stuff like that. So it's interesting. So you could look at like, obviously Elton kind of presented a more like glass half full type of look in comparison to like the Hope perspective that Iris was kind of having, which was kind of like a glass half empty. So when the time came, she confronts Silas, and it's like, Iris is like, just tell me you didn't do it, and I want to believe you. It's like, why'd you keep these? Because he was like, they were too beautiful to throw away. And then he like goes like, wait, before you go, and he like shows that like he had gotten free, but like he just gave up struggling. And I think that speaks volumes. He was free the entire time, but he stopped and he never left. But basically he said it's because he wanted to talk to Iris. He was like, I'm a killer. I killed my dad. I killed Tony. I killed Percy. It's like, that's who I am. He's like, I think there's just something wrong with me. But he's like, I'm sorry that you met me. But he's like, I'm glad I got to meet you, Iris, you know? And so he did what he thought was best for everyone. It's like, rather than you having to leave me behind, rather than you having to turn this into a whole debate, it's like, I'm going to just leave for everyone's sake. And obviously Huck and Felix had that whole conversation back and forth about like, you know, it's like, oh, do you think he'll come back and it's like to be with us? And it's like, no, but maybe this time he'll actually be able to have that second chance, because like there will be people around him that he won't have to be basically carrying his ghost. But obviously that's the whole thing, as what Elton says, like he's going to go with them, because it's like, if I don't, like he's going to be out there on his own. He's going to, you know, not survive, because he's going to think like he's alone and no one's, it's like Elton, like I'll get him and kind of bring him back, and we'll catch up with you guys, essentially was kind of his plan. But obviously for Hope, it's like, why are you going so above and beyond for him? And for Elton, it's also because like he also has this belief of like, oh, like, you know, your that's, you know, Silas's family, but also like, you know, it also gives him hope, like, hey, maybe I, you know, it's crazy. He's like, I know that it's impossible, but my mom and sister might be out there. And Hope finally tells him the truth about everything. And it kind of, you know, it does, you know, because that is the thing. She's like, if you can forgive Silas, maybe you can forgive me one day. And that's a complicated thing, because it's like, yeah, what Silas is accused of is killing someone else. Yeah, it sucks he killed someone, but it's like, it's different from like, wait, you killed my mom? You killed my wait, what? You know, so it hits a little different. And obviously you see Elton kind of fall, but I think like looking at that Walker, it made him kind of, you know, decide like what, I think probably thinking about his mom's book and stuff like that, and just everything. And he's like, what are you going to do? And I think he puts the necklace on and he gets up, because he's like, despite everything, I'm not going to let this stop me. I'm going to keep going. So obviously at the time, she was the only one that knew Elton was doing that, because he was like, yeah, you go ahead and tell everyone else, because I'm very bad at goodbyes. So, and obviously as we see, Silas defends himself against Walker, but he leaves the music, his headset and everything behind, because I think it's just kind of a reminder. And I think he wants to kind of punish himself, that I think he's like, I think for him, he probably felt like he was using that as a defense mechanism. And it's like, I am what I am. I just need, you know, maybe this could be his chance. I don't know. Like, hopefully Elton is able to catch up to him before anything bad happens. But then at the very end, we meet up with Elizabeth, and it's like, oh, someone came. And I was like, wait, is the twist going to be? I was immediately like, oh, is the twist going to be that that Elton's mom is alive and she's working with the Republic? That's what I was thinking. I was like, shit. I was like, don't tell me that. I was like, now that would make things interesting. The real twist ended up being even more interesting, when it's like, oh, it's Huck. I didn't expect that. And it's like, wow. And she's like, oh, this watch is Dad, so you know when to show up again. It's like, you're her daughter. Interesting. So now this, because once again, we don't know anything about these characters. We're just getting introduced to them. But especially in like Huck's case, we learned a little bit about her last episode, sure. But even then, it's like, that's 10 years of like, we don't know what she's been up to between then and her ending up at the university. We don't know what happened in that time, you know? Because obviously it's interesting too, because like Huck has that whole perspective of doing what's for the betterment of everyone, the good for everyone, not just like one person. So now it puts everything in perspective, where it's like, oh, so I'm interpreting that as, I think maybe it doesn't seem like they expressly say that. It's not like she says she did, but I'm like, you killed Tony and framed Silas, didn't you? Because he was drunk and he was easy to frame it on, because you already knew ahead of time how he felt about Iris. So you knew, because you saw it last episode, so you knew it could be like, you know, ammunition to kind of go along with it. Plus, like, we already saw he has anger issues, so, you know. But now it puts in perspective, like, why she was pushing, you know, Hope to be like, no, focus on your dad, nothing else. She was kind of the one who was quick to just really be like, oh yeah, it looks like Silas did. That's why I even feel like that sorry kid wasn't just about digging through his bag. It's almost like, sorry for framing him, but I gotta do what I gotta do. Because it seems like, it seems like, once again, like Iris and Hope seem like maybe just Iris, but maybe Hope as well. Or is so? I think the main thing is Iris, but maybe Hope is kind of a bonus. But it's like, for what the purpose is necessarily in that, I don't know. Like, what do you like? Once again, maybe it's about getting them there because you need. Maybe something did happen to their dad and they need replacement. So who would you get there? It'd be easier to get them there because they think they're rescuing their dad. Who knows what the point? Like, who knows what's really going on there? But it also adds perspective to what she was saying about the whole, like, oh, doing what's, better for everyone. Because obviously she ended up turning against her entire unit to save a large number of people. Maybe that led to the whole Republic thing. Like I said, that's a good chunk of time. We don't know, like, where her story ended after she saved all those people. Maybe some of those people are with the Republic now. Like, because the Republic doesn't seem like they're tied to the military. It seems like they're kind of their own thing. Maybe she met up with her mom. Maybe her mom was some high-ranking, like, politician or someone in power or something. Who knows? It doesn't seem like her mom's in control. It looks like maybe, but she has some higher authority. But it seems like there's most likely even higher authority people that Elizabeth answers to, and probably, Huck as well. But she's like, yeah, I got 48 hours before I have to get back. So I'm assuming that timeline frame is supposed to be that in between, like, when she was, before she met up with Huck and before she met up with Felix and them last. I don't think this is her sneaking away now after everything that went down. I think this is supposed to be going back in time. That this is her in between. This is episode 8. In between episode. Well, the entire time she was away while they were dealing with the whole Tony and because that was like so like around episode 6, like what she was doing in that time, she was like, yeah, I got to get back. So that's what that time frame is, and then she eventually came back and met up with a group. So I think that's what that's supposed to be, kind of a rewind to like some time ago. So, but I think that's why because she probably thinks like whatever they're doing as the Republic, it's like we're doing it for the greater good. Might have to make some sacrifices along the way, but it's for the greater good in whatever shape or form, or whether it's for resources or people, which, if you go by like the Saviors, like people are a resource. But because of all of that, it probably led to a situation where it's like, it's kind of like you have to do some bad to do some good, to kind of balance it out, as she was kind of saying last episode. So I don't know. I felt, like I said, that was just kind of an interesting, situation and turn of events that, like I said, they never expressly said she did it, but now this kind of puts it in your mind that she was the one who did it. Not unless Silas did do it, but it's like, I think he was an easy, patsy to kind of take the fall for this type of situation. So I'm interested to see where this all ends up taking us. I am very interested to see what goes down in said next episode, where the story goes from here, especially now with this whole Huck situation, which is also sad because it's like, who knows, like how long? I don't know if she ever expressly said like how long she was at the university long enough to build these like friendships and everything, which makes that whole university thing even sadder. But it's also like, well, we've seen that in I'm trying to think, we've probably seen it in Fear the Walking Dead, where I am at right now in the series, but we've definitely seen it in The Walking Dead, like the whole most recent thing with being the whole Dante situation. I think that was probably like the most recent like big betrayal and twist of like, oh, he was a spoilers, that he was actually a whisperer. Regardless of tensions and all that, like I said, I'm really interested to see where all this ends up taking us. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.